You're not sitting there on a Friday night having a glass of wine comparing your insurance policies. I mean, women talk, but we don't talk like that.
50 years of conditioning are not going to change just by reading a book.
Yeah.
They're going to change by me choosing to see them for what they are. Like, this is just a limiting belief. It's not true.
As soon as I shifted my energy in the right kind of way, without consciously doing it, it all just fell into place because I was clear on my intention and my desire. Hi, and welcome to Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I'm an independent financial advisor and wealth coach. I'm the director of Evolution Financial Planning, who is also our sponsor for today's show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and review this episode. With your help, we'll reach more people who can benefit from the show. If you're somebody that is not sure what to do with their finances, maybe you're working and you're not sure what to do with the bonuses you've got at work, or maybe you started a business and you've got profits and you're not sure what you should be doing to enable you to A, pay yourself more, or B, potentially retire earlier. Maybe you're somebody that's thinking about, do I overpay on the mortgage? You've received some inheritance. You've got lots of questions around your finances and what to do next. Then check out Evolution Financial Planning, who are regulated independent financial advisors and financial planners that can help you make some of those big decisions in life. So you've got a book on your lap, which is called How to Solve All Your Money Problems Forever. So tell me about this book.
So this book came to me by a guy called Victor Boc. It's been around for like 30 odd years now, perhaps even longer. And Steve Hardison, I mentioned earlier, the ultimate coach that I went to visit in Phoenix, Arizona, back in, what year was it? 22. He recommended it to me, and guess what? I bought it, and it stayed on my shelf for a little bit, like we do. I have thousands of books that are waiting to be read, and roll on a little while. You know, I as I said to you, I was starting to look at how I was showing up with finances. You know, whether I was also falling into that trap of talking about abundance and prosperity and not really looking at money. And because I'd gone through a period of being quite fearful of money and lack of money, there was then a period where I was very loose and easy with money. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, that pendulum swing from one thing to the other, what I began to see was there needed to be, you know, a nice place in the middle where I was more at ease, if you like, without having these extremes. So it was like, okay, so I've done the absolutely scared, terrified of money or lack of it, and I've got loads of it and I'll just easily spend it. There's somewhere in the middle that I need to get to now. And so this book sort of came back into my awareness, and I, as I do, read it myself, worked through it myself, started to get friends asking about what was shifting. People started noticing you seem to be a little bit different about the language you're using, the conversations you're having, how at ease you seem with what was still quite challenging financial situations, right? And so started working with a friend of mine on this, and then it became the Money Program. What I love about this book is it's hugely practical. It's very instructional. It brings in all the things that I was starting to thread into my work. So energetic leadership, a little bit of spirituality, a little bit of faith. It's come from someone that I trusted and respected. And as I began to work through it, I began to see this wasn't about a get-rich-quick scheme. It wasn't about something that made me feel scared again. You know, I think sometimes some of the work you can do around money, some of the books around it can just kind of terrify you back into
hesitation, isn't there? There's like, oh, that's not for me. Yeah. Whatever that sort of, it's a split second and you can shut off from it. Yeah, absolutely. And I can see myself sort of, you know, going back into my into the rabbit hole, because actually this feels too scary for me. And I loved the language of the book. Like when he talks about how to solve all your money problems forever, what he means is it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to become rich overnight. What he means is you're going to change your relationship with money forever. And therefore, once you change your relationship with it, you will never have money problems again. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a multimillionaire overnight. What it means is that the way that you relate to money will change. And for me, that really aligned with the work that I do more generally. It connected the dots.
The stars, exactly, yeah. And as well as it being a very practical instructional book, which I loved, because I often use books to anchor programs in, because it's one, as a coach, it's easy because someone else has done the hard work for you. and it gives real structure to a program. And what I noticed was, a bit like myself, people buy books, they might read them.
They don't necessarily take the action.
Exactly. If you're lucky, they'll read them. If not, like some of my books, they stay on the shelf. And then, like you say, they read them and they think it's great. And they're like, oh my God, this is going to change my life. This is amazing. This is brilliant. And then nothing, because they're not really holding themselves to account. And self-accountability is possibly one of the highest forms of self-leadership you can have. And most of us have to really work.
And around money, I think from an accountability perspective, I talk about, having, with your pensions, having a birthday every year for your pension. You can just pick the date, it doesn't matter when it is. But it gives you an accountability to look at it, because it's its birthday.
Yeah.
If it was your birthday or a friend's birthday, you would take notice. And I talk about maybe having like buddy meetups with girlfriends on pick a day, one day of the month, where you sit down and you go, right, I'm going to sit here and do this. And in this hour, what are you going to do? And you give each other that accountability. Yeah. But because of our good old British, upbringing and mentality around money, we don't really talk about it.
Absolutely.
It's even from like, you got a new car, my head goes, how did you afford that? That's on finance going to be X amount. Did you buy it outright? But we don't ask those questions because that's really rude. Apparently, I'm not allowed to ask random people that kind of questions. I do it in my job day to day, but I'm not allowed to do that.
You've created a job where you can do that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just so nosy. But then when I meet not random people, but people that I know, the same questions go through my head. But we're not open about money. We're not talking about money in that kind of context.
Yeah.
And we're almost taught that's if you have got money, you shouldn't really say that you have got it. And also there's a fear of people wondering if people are going to try and then like want to nick money off you or lend you money or for them to lend them money. And there's this whole like different level of connotations with all of that. So to find a way to have strategic accountability, I think, is really powerful.
And a couple of things else you said in there which is really important is, a lot of the work, I love doing one-to-one coaching. Most of my my clients I work one-to-one with, and I love doing groups and programs, because the level of accountability, of sharing, conversations, etc., is elevated in a group environment. So when I looked at doing this program, I could have done it individually with people, and I recognise that we don't speak about money enough. So to create a program where people were going to be together, working through the book together, sharing their money stories, sharing their celebrations and their wins, was also part of the work. Now, when I began this program, like I say, it was over a year ago. There's been 6 or 7 cohorts of it since. One of the things I really noticed in the first couple was just the power of having people even be in a room together. It's an online room, but being in a room together and sharing like what their financial fears were, what their financial situation was, what they wanted, what they desired and wanted to create, was so powerful. And I could see it kind of shifting how people were before we even got into any of the work of the book, really.
Content,
right? It was just that ability to be in a space where they felt safe to share, perhaps in a way they have never talked about money before.
There's just so much shame around it.
Exactly, there's so much shame.
Comparing each other, and well, I've not done that, or have you done that? Have you done that yet? We've got an attitude to risk questionnaire, and it's changing at work. And it's one of the questions is, do you have more or less insurance than your friends? And I say to everybody, it's a really stupid question. I'm really sorry it's in there. I don't think I know anyone that sits there and has that conversation with friends to talk about their finances. People just don't. No. You're not sitting there on a Friday night having a glass of wine comparing your insurance policies. I mean, women talk, but we don't talk like that. I mean, from the book's perspective, is there like 10 steps, 5 steps? Like
it's even simpler than that, essentially. Right. The basis of the book, and Victor Boc will not mind me sharing, because this has changed millions of people's lives, and he's got his books out there. You can go and buy the book. Go buy the book. But it's very simple. He has a 2-prong attack. And this is where the energetics of it come in. Although we're doing it through the lens of money, you could apply this to anything. Okay. So he has a 2-prong attack, which is you look at where your attractive energy is towards money and where your repellent energy is towards money. Okay. And your only job then is every day to maximize your attractive energy and minimize any repellent energy. So when it talks about the subline of this is creating a positive flow of money into your life. So if you think about it, all we're doing is every day we're going, is my attractive energy that's going to bring money in, call money in, high? Yes. And is my anything that's going to stop it coming in, repellent energy, is it low?
So what would that look
like? Then you create this gap.
Example?
So the attractive energy is we do things like affirmations. Right. We get really clear on where we are. Okay, so we get clear on where we are and where we want to get to. We create affirmations about that, which are really specific and as if they've already happened. So it's not the passive affirmations of just saying, you know, I'm gonna be a billionaire. Yeah. It's actually being like, I, Rebecca, will create a positive flow of money into my life. I, Rebecca, will own multiple homes all around the world. I, Rebecca, will finance my new car. Whatever it is, you get really specific about it. And you don't just say the new car, you say what car it is and what brand it is and what engine size it is and what color it will be and all of that. You get really specific about it. And that becomes, it's not just something we just write down as if, you know, with no energy behind it. We spend time, and this is where the book is more than the two-prong attack, thinking about how do we create that positive, attractive energy. Okay, so we create affirmations around it and we practice them daily. This isn't something, and this is where the accountability really comes in and changing the foundations of how we are. This isn't about writing it down once and then sticking it up on the wall and expecting our lives to change. This is actually sitting with those affirmations daily as a foundational practice. So that's one of the things we do in attractive energy.
Right? Because as soon as you, for example, you said the one, your name's Rebecca and my name's Rebecca. So I don't know if he was referring to me or yourself. But,
me.
And you said about houses all around the world. And I thought, oh, could I do that? And I thought, no, that sounds like too much hard work. That was it's interesting when you sit with things, right? Yeah. So the accountability and working with a coach, the benefit is obviously that then you can, so I thought like this and I felt like that.
Yeah. So the work is in the book, right? And again, you could buy this book. It has really clear instructions. It's really simple. So to get to those affirmations, there's a process that you go through, okay? So you start with looking at your short-term money problems. So the other thing that he does in here is doesn't pretend that we don't have any. And really what he says is it doesn't matter whether you've got £1 in your bank account or £1 million in your bank account. If you follow these instructions, you will improve your relationship with money. Doesn't matter where you are. And one of the greatest things that came through this book for me is that, you know, really it's our relationship with money that impacts how much we can hold. So it's really talking about how much we can hold on to the energy of money, to hold on to physical money.
I can resonate with that, definitely. Yeah. I found that with my own business bank account. I reached a new balance and I almost went, oh, how can I spend this?
Yes.
Because this feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things, you know, the steps that you follow, so there are some steps within this. I purposefully said it's very simple. It's a two-prong attack because it essentially is, and there are steps to get to that place. So the affirmations piece of work, you go through, you write down all your current money problems, short-term money problems, and then you spend some time really with guidance and with help. It's like, okay, what are the possible solutions for that? So you really start getting creative. So, you know, if I've got a bill to pay, what are the possible, you know, ways that I could create that money? And this for me is where I started really stepping into abundance and creating energy, because I started looking at, if I had bills to pay, okay, how do I create it? How do I go out and find the money? Well, I'm a coach, so I'll go and create a new client. I'll go and create a new program. And then, hey, presto, guess what? I've got money in the bank to pay for whatever it is that I need paying for. So it's really looking at that, but getting people to look at it through the lens of creating. There are many possible solutions here. Our brains are wired for the negative. So when we see a bill that needs paying, our brains actually work against us because they start constricting us. They see all the fear and the lack, rather than asking the brain to go, okay, this is a situation. What are all the ways that we could deal with this, right? So that's the first step of it. Once you've got all your initial money problems solved, what you start to see is actually they do get solved because you're looking at it a different way. You then go through a process of, okay, what is it I truly... Now, he uses the word want in the book. I am working much more with desire now. So rather than what do we want, which still comes from a place of lack, what do I desire? So this is where we start creating the more aspirational affirmations. And they're not they're not external to us. So like, what do I truly desire? Like you said there, actually, I don't want houses all around the world. That'll take a lot of management. It will take a lot of energy. I don't want that, right? So that's not true for you, but for someone else, it could be true. So it's really just spending time then, and we work with the affirmations. It's not about creating a fake affirmation. It's about creating something that works for you. So we've had all sorts of ones in there. We've had an affirmation that I desire a spacious home. Okay. Now, at the beginning of creating that affirmation, what that person thought was buying a new home, creating enough money to buy a new home, all of that. What it actually ended up with her was looking around her own home and making changes that made it more spacious. And this is the real power of this. It's not about creating these sort of out there goals that are not aligned truly with who we are. I've got someone who did the program with me, and many people come and do it more than once, not because it doesn't work, but because it actually keeps them in the work, keeps them in the practices.
It's not one and done with most of it.
None of this is one and done, really isn't, and whether you choose to do that yourself or stay in accountability groups or stay in the program, it's a practice, it's a daily practice. Her affirmations were all around, clearing her financial debts, creating a new home for herself that wasn't about what it was worth or where it was about it being a home full of colour, and space and light and all these sorts of things. She spoke about her car, her new Mini that she wanted. She spoke about having different streams of income in her business. Roll on a year, all of those things are there. So the proof is in the pudding here. Like, there is evidence that when we create these affirmations, they're like declarations. We start stepping into them, we start creating them.
But this is where I sort of feel that I can't quite put a finger on it when it comes to, is this sort of very intentional actions, and we're saying it's energetic, or we're saying it's spiritual, when actually if you have somebody who is not forcing it but saying, this is what I want, this is, and I'm not gonna make it happen, not in like in a pushy kind of way, but they're like, okay, what do I really want? I'm clear on what I want. Actually, I don't want this. They can reflect on all of those things, think really, really quickly, and go, right, so that's what's going to happen, so I'm going to make that happen. Like, what's the difference between doing a sort of a spiritual affirmations and then somebody who is just knows what they want and they're going to make it happen?
To be honest, I don't think there is a big difference, actually, right? And again, it depends on the person. I think the magic in this is getting really clear on what you truly desire, not what you think you should have. Now, whether that comes through affirmations or goals or whatever your terminology for it, it's whether it's true for you or not. And for me, the magic is when you have that and you start taking inspired action towards it.
Yeah.
You take steps towards it.
Yeah.
I had a vision of a thriving coaching practice, but if I just sat at home waiting for it to show up, it wouldn't have transpired.
Yeah.
Right.
And my example of that is, I don't know if you remember, I stood up once at one of many retreat, and I said I wanted a horse box. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I wanted a horse box for so long because they're not cheap; they're quite expensive, and I had my horse, and I bought a horse box, and I went to Milton Keynes, drove it back, sat it in the car park. I was just over the moon, and then 2 weeks later, Goose died, and the only time I used it was to take him to the water treadmill and then take him to the vets where he was put to sleep, and he died 18 months ago. And for a long time, I've said I didn't want another horse. I wasn't interested, not what I want to do at all. And I tried to sell the horse box, but I didn't really. It was when people would come to me and they'd say, right, I can come and collect it. Energetically, in my gut, I went, oh no, I'm not ready. I don't know why, because it's got nothing to do with, I wasn't sure what my daughter was doing with her horse, and there was like all these hesitations and things in my head. So anyway, New Year came this year, and I just decided, no, it's time to get rid of the horse box. And so I started going to the yard a bit more because I had to clean the horse box and organise this viewings and stuff. So I started hanging around with my daughter's horse more, which I hadn't done in ages. And there was, I really noticed this pull, and I think that's what you got to notice, those emotional moments. And I had this moment with him, and he was literally cuddling me, putting his neck around me, and I really recognise that I missed that connection that I have. It's very different when you're riding friends' horses, or you're loaning friends' horses, or you're going to riding school, to owning your own. It's very, very different. It's like walking someone else's dog. You can't really compare it. It's either your dog or their dog. It's not, you can't share it in that kind of way. So I then sold the horse box. And up until then, I was like, no, I still don't want another one. And then within a day, almost instantly, I think, selling the horse box, and she'd picked the box up and she drove off, I then felt in my body, I was like, I'm ready to get another horse. And I said to myself, right, how would this work? Like, how would this work in the right way for me? Because yards are tricky. There's some really funny people on yards. And I don't have a lot of tolerance for, that kind of behaviour anymore. So I said to my daughter, I said, I think I do want another horse, but I want it in my own space. I want my own yard. And bear in mind, we've been looking for our own yard on and off for years, just never found the right place. Cut a long story short, we now have a yard and I now have a horse. But it was so serendipitous the way it all fell into place. And literally, we had 10 viewings on this yard, and we were the second one in, and the viewing before us had already made an offer over the asking price. So the likelihood of us getting this place was very, very minimal. We got it, and I had my new horse delivered 2 weeks ago. Her name's Ellie. So I hear what you're saying, that from sometimes when we have an emotional connection to an object that I'm not conscious of, I can't explain it, but then as soon as I shifted my energy in the right kind of way, without consciously doing it, it all just fell into place because I was clear on my intention and my desire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know I wrote a book? It's called Accelerating Your Wealth. Funny enough, the same as the show, Accelerating Your Wealth podcast show. But this is 10 ways to accelerate your wealth. It was designed to really help people with their finances in a simple way. So we focus on some key sections around your money mindset, some practical things that can be done with your finances, and allowing you to maximise your money and your future. So if you're thinking, hey, this stuff is interesting, then the best next step for you is to check out the book. It's an Amazon 5-star bestseller. Yeah, I know, it's great, right? Go and check it out. You can buy it on Amazon and have it with you tomorrow for a nice cup of tea.
Which beautifully illustrates the other part of this two-prong attack, because the other stuff is the repellent energy, which often we are not so aware of. So we've got a lot of people will do a lot of work around the affirmations and what they desire and what that's going to look like, and whether they do it spiritually or from a goal-driven perspective, the energy is still the same. If we just agree for a moment that the energy is the same, right? It's just we might have different terms and viewpoints for it, but essentially we're really clear on what we desire, right? Or want, or whatever language you want to use. So that's kind of the attractive, that's the pulling us forward energy. That's the attractive energy. So one of our jobs is to maximize that, connect with it daily. How would it feel if I have that horse? How would it feel if I had that car? Not just having the car. Like, how would it feel if I'm zipping around the countryside in my little red Mini, which was the lady that I was just telling you about? How would that feel? How, not just what the car would be, right? So that's that side of it. A lot of people do that bit really well. The other bit of the two-prong attack, and this is where it really, really works, is it's what he calls the repellent energy. And it's the less conscious, more insidious, and often kind of addictive energy. So he talks about us being addicted to money. Now, most people say, no, I've never been bothered about money. That's a form of addiction. The sort of energy we have with it is that we're holding on to it. We may not be as aware of why, and we have very limiting stories within that repellent energy. You know, those stories of money isn't important, money is evil, money doesn't make people happy. A lot of this stuff that we've picked up from a post-war generation in terms of our parents and grandparents, right, is that has now become, like, in our energetic field, we're not so aware of it, but it is actually repelling money away from us.
That goes back to what I was saying before about that, like, Cruella de Vil kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Like, having money means that you're going to be basically not a very nice person.
Absolutely. So if you think about this flow of money again, so it's a bit like the description he uses in the book, which I love, is like when you fly a kite. So if you think about the positive energy of money, the affirmations, all of that, that's the wind that's taking the kite. The only thing that's going to pull it back is when we pull back on the string of a kite, right?
Yeah.
That's the repellent energy, and it's the one that most of us are less aware of. So the other part of the book is really looking at where our money addictions show up, where our money stories show up.
Where did it show up for you?
I think limiting stories like, money doesn't make people happy. I lived, my parents, both post-war, both were, very young when the war was going on. One in London, living literally in post-Blitz London, and my father actually being pretty well off in Liverpool in a different kind of way. They had completely different views on money. My mum was terrified of everything, but particularly terrified of money. My dad was like completely laid back about it. And in my life, we'd gone through being very abundant. My dad had a very well-paid job. We lived in a fabulous house. We had more money than we knew what to do with, to literally overnight in the Thatcher years, Dad lost his job, never really worked again. And we went from that to every moment being about money. But what it created, because my dad was very sort of relaxed about it, my mum, hugely in her masculine energy and her fear and lack, was terrified of it. So I sort of had this void in between, and I had all the stories going on about, money doesn't make you happy. And yet I could see that not having money was making my mum very unhappy. So I had everything. I had all of it going on.
Confusing,
really confusing. And this is the bit again where I think this book and this method works really well, is the confusing bit, the bit that we're not so aware of. And we probably have very conflicting messages around, is the bit we never look at because it's too confusing. We can do the affirmations, we can look, oh yeah, I love it, do my vision board with all my nice homes and cars and being able to buy nice clothes and all of that. I can do all of that, but this other bit over here, I've got no freaking idea because it's just too confusing. One minute I think money will buy me happiness, the next I don't think it will. I think that money's great and really amazing. And then I sort of read another spiritual book where it's like, well, if you're interested in money, you're not very spiritual. So we're completely confused about this part. And he really just gets us to look at it and go, okay, what is it that is coming up that's keeping money from us? What are the stories? He has a great method in there, which is really simple. And I promise you that most people will go, that's not going to work. And yet everyone I've worked with in the program, it works when they practice it, is if you notice a negative thought coming up about money, and this applies to anything, it doesn't have to be just money, but this is, you just cancel it. So the thought comes up and you do a thing, you go cancel. And then you come back to the attractive energy. This is why it's a two-pronged thing, because the thoughts are going to keep coming in. We're not going to change. For me, like 50 years of conditioning are not going to change just by reading a book.
Yeah.
They're going to change by me choosing to see them for what they are. Like, this is just a limiting belief. It's not true. I now have something that's truer than that, which is my attractive energy towards money, calling it in, being comfortable with it.
It sounds really practical.
It is really practical.
You describe it as like, I think people would, this is like, oh, it's spiritual and faith, but actually everything you're describing is actually, it's psychology.
Absolutely. This is, like I say, a lot of this aligned with a lot of the other work that I do. However, this book is hugely practical. And what I will say to anyone is you can pick up this book, costs like 10 quid, right? Even if you've read every other money book going, right? And you're like, no, none of them work. I always invite people when they come into my spaces, come with an open mind, come know nothing when you come into these spaces, because if you know something and you know it doesn't work, guess what? It's not going to work. So come with an open mind. Promise you, anyone listening to this today, go and buy this book. You could, if you worked through it and you followed the instructions, and he's really clear in it, it's really clear language as well. It's not fluffed up in this book. It's like, I have created a way that works. If you follow it to the letter, it will change your relationship with money forever, right? One of the things I get the people who read this to do, because we read the book, we meet weekly for 7 weeks, we go through all the exercises. I add other stuff as well that I bring to it through my other work, is, I say to them, look at it every day, read every single page in this book. Read the back page and what people say about it. Read every single testimonial at the front. It's praise for. Read it. And be willing to be challenged by it. There are people in here who said, I read this book and became a millionaire. What do you think we do when we read that?
Oh, that's not me.
Exactly. So I encourage people to read that as if it was them, because why not?
Yeah.
Why not? And that is one of the repellent energies we have.
Yeah.
And it's noticing that when it comes up and going, oh my God, I have just decided that although 20 other people have said that this has changed their relationship with money forever, and many of them have gone on to become very successful, very financially successful people, my little repellent energy voice has gone, well, that's not for me.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I can see even like myself, you have levels, and you know, I've worked on I've done a lot of personal development. I've worked with a lot of coaches, and I feel like there's another level coming.
Always.
And but I can feel that resistance.
Of course. Yeah,
because it feels like another unlevel comfortable. You know, I'm going into double 6-figure business, and that's starting to feel like that's a bit like I'm a big girl. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and that's what all this work is about. Is like when this mountain never has a top, right? That's something else Steve Hardison talks about. And you know, there are various different ways of saying that. I think once you're on this journey of self-leadership, self-growth, self-development, whatever you want to call it, living a life fully is how I describe it. You are always going to get to the edge again at some point. You know, the ceiling becomes the floor. The mountain has no top. Now, I used to, when I had resistance to it, feel like, oh God, am I going to have to be doing this forever? Whereas now, and again, this book has helped me with this, because that's a repellent energy. That's repelling my growth straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if I come back to it and go, I am always going to be learning, right? I think I said it in the bio that I sent you, like, I'm a forever learner. I'm always going to be growing. I'm always going to get to the edge of where I am and go, oh, there's somewhere else I can go. And that to me, no matter what else happens in my life, you asked me earlier about where I want to be in 10 years' time. I'd love to still be finding the edge of my growth in 10 years' time.
So
whatever that looks like.
I love that. And I have a real sort of mentality myself to, like, what's next? And someone said that to me, I don't know, I can't remember who it was now. But do you know, it was one of my football mums. She said, you always see be striving for the next thing, but not in a push way, like just in a natural growth kind of way. And I thought, oh, that's a nice thing to somebody to say. But I think for me, my big blocker that I had in the last few years, children are obviously another one from the, like, you know, I've got a 9-year-old and a 18-year-old now, so they're a bit older. So when they were younger, was menopause. So I literally scaled everything back, had a real reality check, got rid of loads of stuff, programs, courses, and just focused on my regulated business, stopped my podcast, stopped doing a lot of things. And then quite shortly after, the menopause started to kick in, and actually then imminently Goose died. So I was really grateful that I had simplified everything. And actually I was in like my comfort zone. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't developing anything. I wasn't growing anywhere, because I didn't have anything more to give.
Yeah, goes back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I'd also, though, I'd reflect back to you with that was a growth edge for you, because to be willing to, but also being willing to strip everything back.
Yeah.
That in itself, and this is where I think we get a bit confused with like the comfort zone and all of those sorts of things. And, you know, I wasn't really doing very much. I wasn't pushing myself. It's another form of the surrender that we started with, right? To be able to, especially in a very successful business that you've grown up, you know, you built up to that stage.
Yeah.
You're very well known. You were being asked to do all these things.
Yeah.
Actually, that to me is still a growth edge. To be willing to burn it all down, to simplify it, to go, you know what, I could keep, but right now that isn't for me. And then to come back, you know, to then go, actually, okay, that phase has passed.
Yeah.
I'm now willing to begin, you know, looking at other programs, looking at podcasts again, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I don't want you to miss that is also a version of a growth edge.
Okay.
And also
is
anyone
that a positive spin on it though?
Well, no.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean, people will say that because they want to dismiss what I'm sharing with them.
Yeah.
Right. I really want all of us. This is part of this self-leadership and self-awareness. We're so, again, remembering what I said about the brain is wired for the negative. And we can be so self-critical and self-deprecating about ourselves. You know what? So what if it's a positive spin on it? Because what I found is when I put a and I don't like to call it a positive spin, but let's just use that terminology.
Yeah.
When I do, that's when I'm willing to show up again. That's when I'm willing to be confident before I'm ready. It's when I'm willing to put myself somewhere where I've never been before. Is when I actually am able to look at myself and go, you know what, girl, you're doing a great job here. That was freaking amazing that you stripped everything back to nothing. And we're comfortable with that, because you and I both know many people who have not been able to do that and who have burnt out, are desperately unhappy, everything crashes and burns. My life being an example of that way back when. Whereas now, when I choose to, not push myself, when I choose to take a break, when I choose to be kind to myself, when I choose to only view myself through a lens of love and compassion and acknowledgement and celebration, that's when life changes, right? Like really changes. And I think a lot of women think they're failing. Even though they've done it, they think they're failing when they choose themselves. They choose their health, they choose their happiness, they choose to strip back, they choose to simplify, they choose to stop showing up for everybody else and show up for themselves. I still think we have a lens of failure on that. And I really encourage people to not say it's just, putting a positive spin on it, wrapping it up in a bow. It's like, yeah, and that takes real guts. It takes real guts to strip back.
And I asked the question because I wanted that reaction, so thank you.
Yeah. And, I really, it's something I'm passionate about. And something else I think in there as well that you shared that I really want to share. And this is not from a place of arrogance. This is from a place of really, truly loving myself, which is, again, an ongoing journey for me. I know there's always deeper that I can go with loving myself, appreciating myself. And this comes from this work and comes from all the other work that I've done. I had a conversation with someone a few months ago who was looking to start something. They had a desire to begin, and then I heard them talk themselves out of it. And I speak a lot to the people that I work with about, stop screaming for your own limitations, stop fighting for your own limitations. So I call people forward, and it's not calling people out, it's calling people forward. That's my intention. And, she went from this huge dream that would change people's lives, that would have a massive impact on her life and the people that she loves and the people that she would serve. And I just shared with her, I said, over that last 10 years, that journey that I've been on, I've created a 6-figure coaching practice, which is unusual in the coaching world. There's a lot of hype around people who do lots and, it's really hyper successful. And then you've got a lot of people who make no money out of it, right? Yeah. And I have done that in the last 10 years. Now, in that last 10 years, I have, as you've already shared, gone through separation, divorce.
You've moved
I've moved house 4 times, I believe, in that time. I have lost my mum and my dad in that time. Lost my mum last year, my dad 8 years ago. I have gone through COVID, like all of us did.
Brought up three
boys, gone through stuff that's going on with my boys currently as they get to an age where they are dealing with what happened earlier in which has been heartbreaking and really hard to be with. And I've continued loving myself through that. Lost my mum last year, and actually as I was telling her this story, I was like, I'm not sharing this from a place of arrogance. I'm not sharing it from a place of, well, if I can do it, you can do it. What I'm sharing it for is, please don't fight for your limitations, because it would have been very easy for me to not do any of the things I've done based on all of what I've just told you. Menopause was in the middle of it. I had the absolute storm of menopause, selling the house, and COVID within a 18-month period, right? It would have been infinitely easier for me to give up on all of most things and to fight for my limitations. And something inside me had me just keep going, right? And I said this with her probably 4 months ago now, and I talk about calling things in. I said the only thing that I haven't had, like major life thing that I haven't yet had, that I haven't had in that period of time, is a health scare. Right? I haven't had significant health issues, apart from menopause, which I was quite blessed. Although I went through it, there was so much else going on that it just sort of got lost in that a little bit. And unlike a lot of women, I managed that quite well. Literally a month later, I went through a health scare, right? I had some symptoms. I was, because I love myself more than I've ever done before, I got straight on the phone to the doctor and I got myself checked out, which again, I wouldn't have done in the past. I'd lived with it for a while, thought it was me, blamed myself, all those things. And within, 3 weeks, I had gone through a cancer pathway, which luckily it wasn't cancer, and got a diagnosis for ulcerative colitis, which is actually a condition my mum had throughout her life. And, you know, the irony of this didn't get wasted on me, that I literally just shared a story and said, well, the only thing I haven't had is this. And I lost my mum last year. I could have really fallen into a place of, victim. Now I've got the same issue that she had. And actually, through all the work I've been doing, both with this work, with all the programs that I run, the work I've done on myself and continue to do, is I was able to meet that health scare and the diagnosis that is a life-changing diagnosis, if I allow it to be, with a new level of awareness and leadership. And I see it now as a gift. And I now see everything that has occurred in my life as a gift. If I hadn't gone through, deep fear around money, if I hadn't lived in lack, if I hadn't seen my parents live in lack, if I hadn't, gone through all the things that I've gone through, if I hadn't seen how my mum chose to live her life with a life-changing diagnosis, I would not be able to step into it now, see it as a gift, learn from it, see it as another growth edge, and find another way to live my life in a way that I love, that leads me, that enables me to go deeper and further into the work that I do for myself and the impact that I can share with other people. Some of the most powerful work that I have done with my communities has been at times where I have been significantly challenged in my own life. The death of my mum last year enabled me to step into a whole other level of leadership and awareness and guidance that I shared with my community.
No, I can really resonate with that. Like, I know losing your mum and losing a horse, they're very different things, but
still loss.
There was a weird connection with my horse relating to worthiness and relating, because I wasn't allowed a horse growing up. I was not allowed to horse ride. My dad said it was for stuck up people. I come from a very working class family. So all the sort of money mindset connotations around all of that. So my mum was married money, although she was a hairdresser and her partner had to, but she was financially okay. So she'd buy riding lessons for my birthday. So once a year I'd have a riding lesson. So when I bought my horse when I was 30 something, I can't even remember now, like it would be late 30s, maybe 35, 36. It was a real pinnacle moment, and there was a real connection, like quite a deep connection for me spiritually, emotionally. And so when I lost him and the way it happened, it was extremely traumatic. It almost opened me up. Like I'm quite an open person, and I'm quite a very strong, resilient person because of my upbringing and etc. I wasn't brought up by my mum. My mum left my dad when I was 1, so I was brought up by my grandparents, and so there's a whole sort of resilience around all of that. So I'm a very determined, strong individual. And so when this happened, I'd lost both my grandparents, who were my parents essentially. My mum and dad are still alive. I'm still in connection with them, and I still love them both very much. But then losing him, it was almost like it opened me up another level that I wasn't expecting. Like it was almost that vulnerability and that leaning into that I was needing. And it was extremely painful to work through and get through. And then once I realised I was holding myself back, I was not allowing myself to forgive myself, to release him, let him go, that then once I had realised that, then I was like, okay, and I felt that I started to feel better, and but within a couple of months of doing that, I was back and I was back on it again, and I felt great again. But it's interesting how those moments can completely floor us, but actually the better version of us are at the other side.
Absolutely. And it's this repellent and attractive energy. If we could stay in the repellent energy, the victim energy, the blaming ourselves. I mean, my mum and I had a complex relationship, and actually how she passed away last year, could be traumatic. There's a lot of unknowns in there. There could have been a lot of blame and guilt and shame and all sorts of things that could have come up. And actually for me, with the work that I'd done, I was very easily very quickly, perhaps rather than easily, move into a place of just pure love. And it really opened up my awareness of how truly all there is love, and the rest is just BS, for want of a better word, right? And we create a lot of it. A lot of it's in our minds, and we create it. So, a bit like what you've just shared, it enabled me to move into a new level. Like that growth edge we talked about suddenly got blown out of the water, and I didn't need to feel the growth edge. I was just there.
It was like 10 steps ahead.
Absolutely.
I was like, how did I get here?
Yeah, and it's incredible. And I think, again, the more we talk about this, the more we invite other people in to see what's happening to them. I often have these conversations, and everyone's always got, oh, this is going on in my life, and this is going on in my life. And I'm like, guys, it's going on in everyone's life.
Yeah.
It's life. Yeah. It's life. Steve Hardison, again, go back to him. He has this great line in his document, which is, I don't sweat the small stuff, even death. Because essentially it's going to happen. It's the one thing we're absolutely certain of, right?
Exactly. Death and taxes.
And funny you should say death and taxes, because what I was also going to share with you is, talking about money, like you say, we don't talk about money enough. So the more we talk about money, not just wrapping it up in abundance and prosperity and all of that, but talking about money and what it means to us, what the energy of it, everything that's in this program and this book that I talk about is really important. The other one is grief. We don't talk about grief enough. So I talked a lot when I lost my dad. I lost him over many years because he had Alzheimer's. I talked about it. I shared it. Losing my mum last year, I talked about it. I shared it. It was a complex relationship.
I noticed that.
I really share it.
It's so important. Yeah. I really feel that there's a real shame around, oh, here she goes again. Like that kind of what you're thinking other people will be thinking. And you don't want sympathy. You just want people to listen. And I was,
and also my sharing was very intentional. Because, and not from any sort of fake place. It just was. I was like, and I noticed we don't talk about grief enough. And grief isn't just about when we lose somebody. Could be losing a horse, could be losing a business, could be losing a relationship, could be losing an identity that we're shedding, right? Grief is something that is present for most of us most of the time, and yet we don't talk about it. So my willingness to share about it was, one, cathartic for me. It helped me process it. And two, what I noticed was the more I share it, the more it empowers other people. The more people would come to me and say, thank you for sharing that. I have not been able to articulate or express how I feel. One of the things I shared about my mum was there was a massive amount of relief as well as grief. And then the other bit, like you say, about sympathy was I was very intentional about what I was sharing. I was also really intentional about who I was spending time with. Yeah. Because actually I didn't want sympathy. I didn't require sympathy. It didn't help me. People would message me and be all like, oh my God, you must be really struggling. And I'm like, that's not helpful for me right now. What I want to do is be with people who I can share my experience with, who will listen, who will understand, who will honor and witness my grief, not their own, or not their own uncomfortableness with it or how they perceive it. And my relationship with my mother was complex. Yeah. So where people were offering, oh, how hard it must have been at Christmas, I hadn't spent a Christmas with my mum for years. Yeah. So no,
it's not the sort of a simple setup.
It's
people
not a
don't
simple
really
setup.
Understand that. Coming back to the book and just sort of wrapping up the conversation around, we're talking about grief or losing, and those. Some people might be thinking, oh, some of that or all of that applies, right? So. There's a lot to sort of unpack. What are the sort of some of the quick steps that they can do if they've got any thoughts around what we've been just discussing? Is there any sort of quick steps that they can do? Would you sort of recommend like journaling, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of foundational practices that I talk to clients about, which go across all my programs and my work with people. So, and I'd love people to just have that concept as well. Like, what are my foundational practices and daily. So daily foundational practices, as you said earlier, it's not a one and done. Okay, so what can you put into your day that is going to build your foundations every single day? So journaling is a great one. I have many different ways that you can journal. We learn morning pages with one of many, which are very powerful. And there are many other ways that you can bring journaling in. But really, it's a way to have a conversation with yourself. Everything I've talked about is about self-leadership, self-awareness, self-trust, self-esteem. So the way to create that, to begin that, is to have a conversation with yourself. Journaling is a great way. Another great way that I've been, people talk about it a lot is meditating. Meditation is incredibly powerful because, again, it's giving ourselves a chance to have a conversation with ourselves. One of the simplest ways, because we can make meditation very complex, and people think they imagine they have to be sat somewhere, umming. And the reality is you can meditate when you're making a cup of tea. One way to meditate is just bring real presence to what is currently happening. And it's not necessarily about emptying your mind of all thoughts. It's about being intentional with it. So next time you make a cup of tea, get really intentional about it, or coffee or whatever it is. Just be really present with it. Notice what's going on. That's a form of meditation.
I've heard a lot of people talk about breathing recently as well.
Breathing, yes,
exactly. Holding energy into their body.
Yeah.
Holding the tension and actually taking bigger breaths, and then that actually relaxes the vagus nerve, which then sends the right messages to your brain to relax.
Yeah, it's a great one. The breath at the moment, really understanding we can literally change our perspective, our physiological state, our nervous system with a breath, like one breath.
Yeah.
So even if you just, pause and breathe, like you say, a little bit deeper, a bit longer, you can literally change your whole way of being.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd really recommend at the moment, and there's many things I could talk about here, but, breathing, journaling, that idea of meditation, and also having this conversation with yourself. Even if you just sit with yourself for 5 minutes in a day. Now, I'm studying a book called The Way of Mastery at the moment, which is a whole other podcast we could do on that. But one of the practices in there is to just sit with yourself for 5 minutes every day with nothing. No podcast playing in your ear. Save the podcast for another time.
No music.
Right, no music. Yeah. Nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to change. Just be with yourself for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Tune into your inner wisdom. Tune into who you are. You can do it in nature. You can do it sat in bed, whatever it is. Just 5 minutes with yourself.
I think that's really
makes
powerful.
A massive difference.
We've talked about consciousness, and the previous lady we talked about gut instinct, and that whole sort of piece around being relaxed and your vagus nerve and your body not in fight or flight, and you're feeling, you're not in terror, fear, shame. If you can work through those things, switch the mentality onto a more of a positive outlook, and then listen to that intuition, that things will become in flow. It's all about divine timing, because I wasn't meant to sell the horse box a year ago, as an example. I was meant to sell it when I was meant to sell it, because it was meant to fall into place the way that it did. So sometimes forcing it, but what I did focus on is what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and focus on those small things. They're not big things that can actually make me happy.
Yeah. And the intuitive voice tends to be quieter. We have a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Podcasts, books, social media, TV, radio, everything's 24/7 these days. All of that is a lot of noise. The intuitive voice is quieter. So the best way to hear it is to create space for it and create quiet for it so we can hear it. And then the other thing I would say as a foundational practice is to ask yourself that question that's come up a few times today as we've been talking, is what do I truly desire today?
Right now.
Like, what do I truly desire today? And just notice what your inner wisdom comes through and follow it. Take some inspired action, because then we start creating this cycle of trust with ourselves.
Yeah.
So our psyche knows to tell us what it desires, because it now knows we're going to go and meet it.
It's like a bandwidth. You can turn it up and it starts to be more intuitive. Yeah. We're going to wrap up now. Yep. How can people contact you?
So on all the socials, which I'm sure you'll share somewhere beautifully with this podcast. So I'm on all the socials.
In the notes, descriptions below.
Yeah, Rebecca Shannon or Compliment Coaching. Please get in touch. I always offer people a complimentary call just to explore what's going on for them at the moment. And I really want to encourage people that this kind of work is not just when you have a problem in your life. Yeah. It's for any time in your life.
That next level.
What's that growth edge for you? It might be a new project, might be a new life, might be a new identity, whatever it is. And the money program, as it's affectionately known, it's a 7-week program, and I run it, several times a year. So the next one probably will be in September because of August and lots of holidays and things. So that's something, if you want to step into the work, begin somewhere. Why not begin with money? Why not begin with one of the foundational things in our lives? If we had a more positive flow of money into our lives, lots of the things we desire we could then meet. So if someone's interested in stepping into that, please get in touch.
Thank you so much for joining me. I feel like we could talk for like another 2 hours, quite literally. And it's been amazing having you. Thank you. And so thanks for listening. Do like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Did you enjoy today's show? I'm sure you did. I did. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining us today at Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do subscribe and let us know in the comments any of your thoughts.